Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes, stacks of research, articles, all the details, and really tries to pull out the absolute core insights to get you up to speed quickly.
And today, we're really diving deep into a case that, honestly, it just defied all expectations. It dominated headlines for years. It's like something out of a thriller.
Absolutely. We're talking about a murder case. It went all the way to trial, ended with a conviction. But here's the thing. Nobody was ever found.
Yeah, it's the disappearance of Jennifer Farber Dulos, a mother of 5 from this really wealthy town in Connecticut, vanished back in May 2019.
And the first real clue, the thing that really kicked off this huge investigation, it was just chilling. Surveillance footage.
Right, footage of her estranged husband, Fotis Dulos, and his girlfriend at the time, Michelle Draconis. And they're just sort of casually dumping garbage bags in random city trash cans, bags that turned out to be filled with evidence.
It's incredible. You have this image of a perfect life, right? This well-off, well-connected family. And it just completely unravels into this really complex conspiracy. And it wasn't just one person involved either.
Definitely not. So our goal here today is to really walk through it all, piece together that timeline, look closely at the forensic evidence, which is fascinating, track how the stories from everyone involved kept changing.
Yeah, the contradictions.
Exactly. And then there were the legal battles that followed. We want to give you, a shortcut to really understanding the complexities of this whole mystery.
We'll dig into the shocking facts, the intense human drama behind it all, how this really bitter personal family fight the divorce, the custody battle just escalated into something truly dark.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What could be going on beneath the surface, even in places that look so perfect from the outside?
And for you listening, this isn't just, another true crime story, although it has all those elements. It's really an unsettling look at the kind of darkness that can exist under seemingly normal, even privileged lives.
Yeah, it hits on some pretty universal fears, right? About safety, control, and relationships, the hidden lives people might be leading. It reminds you that sometimes the truth is something you really have to search for.
Okay, so let's really get into it. Where does this story begin?
Well, like a lot of these cases, it starts not with the crime itself, but with the image, the facade.
Yeah.
Jennifer Farber Dulos, on the surface, she had this incredibly privileged life.
Right. Grew up in Brooklyn, wealthy family, went to Brown University class of 90. She was a writer too, wasn't she?
Yeah, she wrote for Patch.com, had her own blog, really smart, accomplished woman. But everyone who knew her, they all say the same thing. Her life revolved around her 5 kids.
5 kids. Including 2 sets of twins.
That's right. 2 sets of preteen twins and an 8-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
She's just completely devoted, very hands-on mom.
Okay. And then there's Fotis Dulos. Different background.
Yeah, very different. Grew up between Turkey and Greece. Also went to Brown, actually. Graduated a year before Jennifer, 89. Got an MBA from Columbia.
And his career was in luxury homes.
Luxury home builder, real estate developer. His company was 4 Group, Inc. But here's a key detail. His business was initially funded, we're talking millions, by Jennifer's father.
Ah, okay. So there's a financial tie there right from the start.
A big one. And that financial dependence definitely became a source of tension later on. Fotis was also really into water skiing, like seriously into it.
Okay.
But maybe took it a bit far. He apparently imposed this really demanding training and travel schedule on the older twins for skiing, sometimes, without much regard for what they wanted or the rest of the family.
So their early relationship, it looked good from the outside.
Oh yeah, picture perfect. Met at Brown, reconnected years later in Aspen. Although, get this, Fotis was actually married when they reconnected.
Seriously?
Yeah, but he apparently told Jennifer the divorce was already underway. They got married in 2004, like a month after his first divorce was final.
Wow. Okay.
Had the 5 kids through IVF, named them after Greek Orthodox saints. For years, they really projected this image of, the successful, happy, wealthy Connecticut family.
But you said the cracks started showing earlier.
Much earlier than most people knew. Fotis had this habit of constantly moving the family into houses he was building or flipping.
Oh, that sounds stressful.
Jennifer apparently said it kept her feeling on edge. It was this kind of subtle control, always making her adjust to his business plans.
Right.
And there was this incident back in 2007. Fotis got into an argument with Jennifer's dad, apparently over money, and he actually threw a chair at him.
He threw a chair at his father-in-law.
Yeah. It missed, apparently, but still. It showed this volatile temper pretty early on, even though it didn't immediately break those financial ties with her family, which were obviously important to him.
So what was the breaking point? What really made things fall apart?
It seems like the major catalyst was in early 2017. Jennifer's father passed away. He'd been, her protector, the financial support. She was grieving, vulnerable.
Yeah, of course.
And right around that time, she discovered Fotis was having an affair with a woman named Michelle Troconis. She was also a water skier from Venezuela. They'd met on a trip.
And how did Jennifer find out, or how did Fotis react?
Well, apparently when Jennifer confronted him, he was just completely brazen about it, didn't deny it, just admitted it. And then this part is just stunning. He asked Jennifer to move out so Michelle and her daughter could move in.
Wait, what? He asked her to leave their home?
That's the story. Just incredible arrogance or maybe desperation. Either way, that was it for Jennifer.
I can only imagine. So she left.
Immediately. She was afraid not just for herself, but for the kids. She took them, went to a hotel in New York City first, even hired bodyguards. Then she filed for divorce.
Bodyguards. Wow. She must have been genuinely scared.
Her court filings described his behavior as irrational, unsafe, bullying, threatening, and controlling. Fotis, of course, hit back hard, accused her of kidnapping the kids.
So it just turned into this horrible, messy custody battle.
Horrible is probably an understatement. Millions in legal fees racked up on both sides. The kids were absolutely caught in the middle. It's always the kids. Okay, so that sets the stage. This intense conflict is raging. And that brings us to that Friday morning, May 24th, 2019, the day she disappeared.
Exactly. The nanny, Lauren Alameda, she had a normal start to her day. Early text from Jennifer about the kids' schedules. Jennifer handled the school drop-off that morning herself. Seemed like business as usual.
Lauren was the full-time nanny.
Yeah. And she had a busy day planned. Pick up 4 of the 5 kids midday, drive them about an hour into Manhattan for a long orthodontist appointment.
Okay.
So around 11 a.m., Lauren gets to Jennifer's house in New Canaan, this massive place Jennifer's mom had bought for them. 7 bedrooms, huge mansion, typical for that super wealthy area.
And that's when things started to feel off.
Right away. First thing, Jennifer's Range Rover, which Lauren knew Jennifer planned to take to the city for her own appointment, was still in the garage.
Weird.
And Jennifer's other car, the Chevy Suburban, was gone. So, okay, maybe plans changed, Lauren thought. But then inside the house...
More weird stuff. Yeah. Jennifer's expensive pousse just left on the floor near the kitchen. Her morning tea, her granola bar, untouched on the counter, like she just vanished mid-routine.
Okay, that's definitely strange. But then there was the really odd detail.
The paper towels. This is the part that, in hindsight, is just so chilling. Lauren had stocked the pantry the night before with the 12-pack of paper towels.
Okay, Mom.
And now, 10 of those 12 rolls were gone.
10 rolls out of 12, gone.
Gone. Lauren initially thought, kids, maybe a huge spill. But later, it screamed massive cleanup.
I mean, what requires 10 rolls of paper towels? That's a huge red flag right there, isn't it? Even if you don't know why yet.
Absolutely. For investigators, that detail alone signals something major happened, followed by a really intense effort to erase it. Not a quick wipe down, but a serious, prolonged cleanup.
But Lon didn't know that yet. She had kids to pick up, this long drive.
Exactly. So she tidied up a bit, went about her day, texted Jennifer later, asking about using an iPad for the drive. No response. Sent updates about their ETA to Grandma's house, asked if Jennifer was meeting them at the orthodontist. Still nothing.
And Jennifer usually responded quickly.
Always, especially about the kids.
Yeah.
So by 4 p.m., no response at all. Lauren's getting worried. She tries calling Jennifer while they're at the orthodontist. Straight to voicemail.
Okay, that's when the panic sets in.
Big time. Texts are one thing, voicemail's another. Jennifer always answered her phone. Lauren starts calling friends. Nobody's heard from her.
Oh, man.
Then she remembers the iPad the kids have, logged into Jennifer's accounts. She checks Jennifer's Google Calendar, gets the kids back to their grandma's, jumps in a cab, goes straight to the address of Jennifer's last appointment. Receptionist confirms Jennifer never showed up.
Okay, now it's officially terrifying.
Lauren calls one of Jennifer's best friends. The friend urges her, call the police, now. So around 7 p.m., they report Jennifer missing.
And they mentioned the divorce. And Fotis.
Explicitly. Told the dispatcher it was a worst-case scenario, mentioned the high-conflict divorce, and crucially, that Fotis had recently bought a gun. Police took it very seriously.
Good. So officers arrived quickly.
Almost immediately. Officers Matthew Blank and Aaron LaTourette. House was dark, silent. Lauren gave them the garage code. They go in.
And the garage looked clean at first.
Surprisingly clean, organized. But Officer Blank, he's got sharp eyes. He looks closely at the Range Rover, the one Jennifer should have taken, and sees it.
The blood spatter.
Tiny red specks on the bumper. That's all it took. They immediately called for backup.
And they found more?
More stains on the garage floor, other parts of the car. But it was obvious someone had done a massive cleaning job, like a 10 rolls of paper towels kind of job.
So they brought in luminol?
Yep. Sprayed it down, and the whole garage just lit up blue.
Mm-hmm.
Blood evidence everywhere on garbage cans, the driver's side door, the concrete floor. Clear swirl marks showing where someone had scrubbed frantically.
And the amount of blood suggested it wasn't survivable.
That's what forensic experts concluded. Based on the sheer volume indicated by the luminol, they believe she suffered non-survivable wounds right there in the garage.
Just horrific. Did they find anything inside the house itself?
Body cam footage later showed, these eerily empty rooms. Kids' photos everywhere, the silver sea balloon for one of the daughters tied to the counter. Like time just stopped. Forensically, they found a mix of Jennifer's and Fotis's DNA on the kitchen faucet.
Fotis's DNA inside the house.
A tiny amount mixed with hers on the faucet. And another tiny speck of just Jennifer's DNA on a doorknob suggests he was inside during or after, likely part of that frantic cleanup.
Okay, and meanwhile, what about the missing Suburban?
Police found it pretty quickly. Abandoned in Waveney Park, about 10 minutes away. It was backed up against a tree, gear shift stuck in reverse, doors locked.
And signs of a cleanup inside.
Definitely. Officers could see through the windows evidence of the cleanup of a blood-like substance. This confirmed it. Full-blown missing person, likely homicide investigation.
And Lauren, the nanny, she immediately pointed the finger at Fotis.
Without hesitation. Told police if anything bad happened, it had to be Fotis. Explained the terrible divorce. Messy, to put it lightly. She mentioned Jennifer's previous claims of him being controlling, threatening, bullying, even physically aggressive. Jennifer had tried to get emergency custody, but was denied.
So the motive seemed clear pretty quickly: money and custody.
That's what police zeroed in on. Fotis was drowning in debt, millions. Jennifer's mom was demanding repayment of huge loans she'd given him for his business.
Right, the business her father initially funded.
Exactly. But the real potential jackpot for Fotis, the straw that broke the camel's back perhaps, was the kids' trust fund.
How much was in it?
Set up by Jennifer's parents. $2 million per child. 5 kids. That's $10 million.
$10 million. And Fotis could potentially access that if he had sole custody.
That was the theory. It would solve all his massive financial problems, let him keep up this lavish lifestyle he clearly felt he deserved. It wasn't just about the kids. It was potentially about financial survival. This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, so the day after she vanishes, police talk to Fotis.
Briefly. And right away, things seemed off. First, he shows up really late for the meeting. Second, he's got this newly shaved head. Very unusual for him.
Shaved head? Why would that be significant?
We'll get to that. It becomes very relevant later. Third, he brings his divorce lawyer, not a criminal defense attorney. Big mistake, probably. That lawyer seemed totally unprepared for a potential murder investigation.
And Fotis himself seemed off.
Detectives said he looked flustered, like someone desperately trying to appear calm but failing. He made another mistake, talking first, asking any news about my wife. Then his lawyer jumps in, says Fotis won't cooperate, they're leaving.
But then the phone incident happened.
This is just baffling. An officer calmly asked to see his phone. And Fotis, against his lawyer's frantic protest, just hands it over.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And then he gives them the passcode. 0000.
You're kidding. 4 zeros. He gave them the keys to the kingdom.
Pretty much. The officer immediately put it in airplane mode to preserve the data. That phone, that passcode. It was a monumental break for the investigation. A huge, self-inflicted wound for Fotis.
Unbelievable. What about his behavior towards the kids right after?
Also deeply suspicious. Starts texting the nanny, Lauren, late that Friday night all through the weekend, demanding updates every few hours, saying he's extremely concerned.
Okay, maybe a concerned father, or maybe.
Or maybe something else. Then, just 2 days after Jennifer vanished, he shows up at Jennifer's mom's apartment in Manhattan where the kids are staying. The doorman denies him entry, per instructions. Fotis actually calls the NYPD, claims grandma abducted his kids.
He called the cops on his mother-in-law while his wife is missing.
Yes. Trying to use the system to get access. And then get this. Tuesday morning, May 28th, only 4 days after Jennifer disappeared, his lawyer files for full custody.
4 days. That's incredibly fast. It's like he already knew she wasn't coming back.
That's certainly how it looked to investigators, like he was already moving on, securing control.
Okay, so they have his phone now. What did the data show?
This is where it gets wild. They map his movements on May 24th. At first, the data seems to back up Michelle Troconis' alibi, showing his phone pinging around his mansion in Farmington until about 7 p.m. He even supposedly answered a call from Greece.
But phone data only shows where the phone is, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not necessarily where Fotis was. And after 7 p.m., the phone's location suddenly changes drastically.
Where'd it go?
Downtown Hartford. Specifically, Albany Avenue, about 25 minutes away, an area known for crime. Police are thinking, what was he doing there?
And that's where the surveillance cameras came in.
The unsung hero, as investigators called them. Footage captures Fotis and Michelle Troconis together in his black Ford Raptor truck.
Doing what?
Driving along Albany Avenue, making multiple stops. And at each stop, they're dumping large black garbage bags into random city trash cans.
Dumping bags together? What else did the camera show?
At one point, Michelle is seen leaning out of the passenger side, sliding something down into a storm drain.
Sliding something into a storm drain, and then...
And then, after all this, they just casually stop at Starbucks, get food, frappuccinos, like nothing happened.
Wow. The casualness after dumping potential evidence, that's deeply unsettling. What does that suggest to you?
It suggests a chilling level of detachment, maybe premeditation, like this was part of a plan, executed without much apparent stress, not a panicked, impulsive act. So investigators immediately descended on that area.
Searching the trash, the storm drain.
Exactly. Cadaver dogs at the trash plants, sewer crews pumping out the drain, grim work. And they hit pay dirt in the storm drain first.
What did they find?
A FedEx envelope. Inside, 2 Connecticut license plates. But they've been tampered with.
Tampered with how?
Tape used to change letters, like turning a D into a B. Police figured out the original plate numbers, ran them. The expired plates registered to Fotis Dulos.
Whoa, so fake plates, that screams pre-planning.
Absolutely. Deliberate deception. But the real clincher was in those garbage bags they recovered from the trash can.
What was inside? Not her.
No, thankfully not her remains. But what they found was almost as damning, a bloody cleanup kit.
Clean-up kit? Like...
Zoo ponchos, sponges, and tons of paper towels, just like the type missing from Jennifer's pantry. All of it absolutely drenched in blood.
Oh my God, what else?
A box cutter, zip ties, gloves, part of a mop handle, everything you'd need to clean up a horrific scene.
And Jennifer's personal items?
Chillingly, yes. Her bra, a Vineyard Vines shirt she owned. The slogan on it was, "Every day should feel this good, all soaked in blood."
That's heartbreaking. And the DNA.
Confirm. All the blood was Jennifer's.
Yeah.
Her DNA was on the zip ties, a sponge, the gloves, one poncho. But crucially,
yes,
Fotis' DNA and Michelle Troconis' DNA were found together on the outside of one of the garbage bags they dumped.
Both of them. On the bag itself?
Yep. Physically linking both of them directly to the disposal of bloody evidence. That was huge. Just 8 days after Jennifer disappeared, police arrested both Fotis and Michelle.
What were the initial charges?
Hindering prosecution and tampering with physical evidence. They didn't have enough for murder yet, but this was a massive step.
Okay, so Fotis isn't talking. What about Michelle?
Surprisingly, after her arrest, Michelle seemed willing to talk. Hired a lawyer, Andrew Bowman, and sat down with detectives for hours. First interview.
And what did she say? Did she confess?
No, quite the opposite. She gave Fotis what she probably thought was a bulletproof alibi. Claimed he was with her all morning at his house in Farmington.
All morning? Doing what?
She gave details. Said they took a shower together, had sex, trying to establish intimacy and proximity.
And she accounted for her own time, too.
Meticulously. Said she went to Stop and Shop, even took a selfie with the store robot, kept the receipt. Visited a friend, went water skiing. Her story put Fotis over an hour away from Jennifer's house when she disappeared. No way he could have been there, according to her.
And the garbage bags. What did she say about those?
She insisted she had no clue what was inside, thought they were just dumping construction things. Her sister even backed this up later, saying Fotis often dumped construction debris in public cans.
That sounds almost too perfect, that alibi. Too detailed.
Exactly. And it turns out it absolutely was rehearsed. Because police, searching Fotis' properties later, they found something incredible.
What?
Handwritten notes and photocopies of those notes, stuffed in the trash, in a briefcase at the Farmington house.
Notes about what?
Different versions of a timeline, hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute, detailing exactly what Fotis and Michelle were supposedly doing the day Jennifer vanished. Phone calls they made, received, everything.
Wait, alibi scripts. They actually wrote down their fake alibi.
That's what it looked like. Proof they were actively constructing a false story together, a conspiracy.
Wow. What does finding something like that do for the investigation?
It blows her initial story wide open, shows clear intent to deceive. So police bring Michelle in for a second interview. This time, they play hardball.
What does that mean?
They laid it out bluntly, told her she was the most hated woman in America, told her Jennifer was dead, and Fotis killed her, even though they couldn't definitively prove the how or where yet. These are legal tactics in Connecticut, meant to pressure suspects into telling the truth.
How does she react?
She was apparently very distraught, crying. But she still didn't completely break, still holding back.
But the police kept pushing. They had more evidence by then.
Oh, yeah. They found even more surveillance footage. Highway cameras, cameras closer to Jennifer's house. And this new footage definitively proved Fotis was not in Farmington that morning.
So where was he, and how did he get around without his Raptor being seen near Jennifer's house?
This is where Pavel Gumieni, his project manager, comes in. The footage revealed Fotis had borrowed Pavel's truck, a red Toyota Tacoma, which was usually parked at the business wing of Fotis's Farmington property.
He borrowed his employee's truck. And the shaved head. Did that connect?
Investigators believe so. Fotis shaved his head, possibly to look more like Pavel, who normally drove the red Tacoma. A deliberate attempt to create a diversion if the truck was spotted.
That's incredibly calculating. So, with this new video evidence, they interviewed Michelle again.
Yes. And the pressure, the video.
Yeah.
It finally started to crack her story. She admitted she never actually saw Fotis at the Farmington house that morning.
She admitted it, after insisting they showered together.
Her exact words were something like, "I always thought he was in the house, but thinking I never saw him, I never heard his voice, so obviously he wasn't, well, probably wasn't in the house." A huge backtrack.
What about that call from Greece his phone supposedly answered?
She admitted she answered that call, and that it was planned in advance. And get this. She said Kent Mowini, Fotis's friend and lawyer, told her to do it.
Kent Mowini. Another person pulled into the conspiracy. Did she admit anything else?
Yes, something really disturbing. She said when she was cleaning another property Fotis owned, Mountain Spring Road, Fotis handed her some paper towels with big brown stains. She put them in a garbage bag.
Big brown stains. Did she say what she thought they were?
She claimed she thought it was spilled coffee.
Coffee. Despite everything else going on. And wasn't it later confirmed to be?
Confirmed to be Jennifer's blood, yes.
Yeah.
And this coffee explanation seemed pretty weak, especially since a project manager testified Michelle had never claimed any of their properties before. Ever. It looked like a desperate attempt to explain away her DNA being found on that bloody garbage bag from Albany Avenue.
Okay, that makes sense. And the car wash? Did she talk about that?
She confirmed it, said Fotis took Pavel's red Tacoma to a car wash 5 days after Jennifer vanished, paid cash for a full detailing, and Michelle followed him there and picked him up afterwards.
Another attempt to destroy evidence with her help.
That's exactly what police believed. Her involvement just kept getting deeper.
Okay, let's circle back to Pavel Gumieni and that red Tacoma. It seems absolutely central. What was his full story?
Pavel told police, Fotis took the Tacoma on May 24th without even asking. Then afterwards, Fotis was weirdly reluctant to give it back, even offered Pavel his own expensive Raptor instead.
That's suspicious right there.
Extremely. Then Fotis starts blowing him up, calling constantly, pushing Pavel aggressively to get new seats for the Tacoma, offering to buy them, offering seats from his own Porsche.
Why new seats? What was Fotis implying?
He never said explicitly, but the implication was clear. Then he started using coded language. Told Pavel not to text using the word seats, but to use the code word hardware instead.
Or hardware. Okay, that's shady. Did Fotis threaten him?
It escalated. Fotis told Pavel, who wasn't a U.S. citizen, he'd seen Jennifer the week before, so maybe her hair was in the truck, which wouldn't look good. Then he basically threatened him, saying getting tangled up in a missing person case could be really bad for his immigration status.
Wow. That's outright coercion, so Pavel was freaked out.
Totally freaked out. So he did what Fotis told him. He switched the Tacoma seats for the Porsche seats. But, and this is the absolute crucial part,
He didn't get rid of the old seats.
he kept them. Whether out of fear, suspicion, or a sense of doing the right thing, he held on to those original Tacoma seats. And eventually, in exchange for immunity from prosecution, he turned them over to the police.
Immunity. Interesting. There was some speculation about whether Fotis had help during the actual attack, right? Because 2 bloody ponchos were found.
Right. The immunity deal with Pavel raised questions. But investigators stated they found no definitive proof of anyone else being inside Jennifer's house during the murder itself, acknowledging there were some surveillance blind spots. The deal with Pavel, while securing the vital seed evidence, essentially closed the door on investigating his potential direct involvement further.
So what did the police find on those original Tacoma seats Pavel saved?
This was the paramount piece of evidence, the smoking gun. When they sprayed the seats with luminol, they lit up like crazy, covered in blood residue.
In DNA testing.
Confirmed Jennifer Dulos' blood on the passenger seat. Undeniable proof linking Jennifer directly to the truck Fotis borrowed and was so desperate to alter. This discovery directly led to the murder charges.
Incredible that he saved them. Did Pavel mention anything else?
Yes, something chilling from months before the disappearance. He recalled Fotis talking about putting down their family dog, and Michelle Troconis apparently chimed in, calling Jennifer a terrible name and saying she should be buried in the backyard next to the dog.
Whoa, that shows real malice from Michelle towards Jennifer long before this happened.
Exactly. Showed deep-seated animosity, tons of bad blood. Not just someone caught up in her boyfriend's mess, but potentially someone who harbored real hatred.
Okay, so let's bring in the third person charged. Kent Mawhinney, Fotis' friend and lawyer.
Right. Kent Mawhinney. He had his own messy divorce going on, even had a protective order against him after a dropped rape charge. Allegedly, he tried to violate that order by contacting his wife through Fotis.
So they were close, maybe involved in each other's messy personal lives.
It seemed that way. And here's another weird detail. Kent had rejoined a local gun club just a couple of months before Jennifer disappeared.
A gun club? Why is that relevant?
Because in early June, after Jennifer went missing, 2 members of that club told police something startling. They said just days before she disappeared, they saw what looked like a freshly dug grave in a wooded area of the club property.
A grave? Seriously?
About 6 feet deep, looked like a grave pit. It was covered with grates, branches, leaves, and inside they saw a tarp and 2 bags of lime.
Lime, like to help decomposition.
Exactly. But by the time police investigated this tip, the hole had been completely filled back in. No remains found. But the timing, the description, its disappearance, deeply suspicious.
And Kent's name was in those alibi scripts Michelle and Fotis wrote.
Yep. The scripts claim Fotis and Kent met at the Farmington house that morning. But when police first asked Kent, he denied any meeting happened.
He denied it. Did he stick to that story?
No. Later, he changed it. Said a meeting was scheduled, but claimed Fotis never showed up. He also tried to excuse his hazy memory by saying his phone broke, fell downstairs the day after Jennifer vanished, and he'd hit his head.
Oh, come on. Broken phone hit his head? That sounds incredibly convenient.
Highly suspicious, right?
Yeah.
But police pulled his cell records anyway. And guess what?
They showed he did talk to Fotis that day.
Bingo. Specifically while Fotis was driving around Albany Avenue dumping those garbage bags. And remember, Michelle eventually testified that Kent was at the Farmington house that morning and told her to answer that call from Greece for Fotis' alibi.
So Kent was directly involved in creating the false alibi. This leads to that darker theory, doesn't it? The strangers on a train idea.
Exactly. Investigators started thinking, maybe this was a twisted pact. Fotis and Kent, both in bitter divorces, both with wives they seemingly wanted out of the picture, maybe a scheme to help each other.
It's like something out of a movie. Did they find proof?
No concrete proof of Kent's involvement in the actual murder. But the connections, the lies, the timing, it painted a picture of conspiracy. And as we mentioned, the immunity deal with Pavel might have prevented finding out if anyone else was directly involved.
Okay, so based on everything, the blood, the car, the witnesses, the lies, what's the police theory of how the actual attack went down?
Based on the arrest warrants, they believe Fotis woke up super early on May 24th. Took Pavel's red Tacoma, put his old racing bike in the back, drove over an hour to New Canaan.
Parked where?
At Waveney Park, probably to avoid being seen near the house. Then rode his bike the short distance to Jennifer's place.
And got into the garage somehow?
Yeah, maybe with an old key, they're not sure how, but they believe he got inside the garage and then just laid in wait for her.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Jennifer gets home from dropping the kids off, drives into the garage, closes the door. Police think, based on the blood spatter patterns, she was probably walking towards the house door, maybe her back was turned, when he attacked her from behind.
Do they know how he attacked her?
The exact cause of death is unknown without her body. But they believe he struck her. She fell, became incapacitated. The medical examiner felt confident, given the amount of blood, that the wounds were non-survivable. Detective Kimball believes she fought back hard, didn't go quietly, leading to severe overkill by Fotis.
Which explains the massive cleanup needed.
Exactly. Fotis then likely spent hours cleaning that garage. Even went inside the house, took her paper towels, leaving those tiny DNA traces on the faucet and doorknob.
And then, what did he do with Jennifer?
Police believe he zip-tied her ankles and wrists. Those bloody zip ties were found in the trash bags. Then put her body and his bike into her own Chevy Suburban.
Drove her Suburban back to Waveney Park.
That's the theory. Back to where he'd left the red Tacoma. And there at the park, the crew and the transfer happened.
Transferred her body to the Tacoma or something else?
That's the gap. He either put her body in the Tacoma then, or maybe handed her off to someone else to dispose of. Then he drove the Tacoma back to Farmington.
And the theory that her body might have still been in the Tacoma when he and Michelle were cleaning it later.
It's a disturbing possibility police considered. Fits with the timeline of him getting the truck detailed days later. There are still gaps in the surveillance footage where he could have disposed of her body somewhere unknown. That's the agonizing mystery.
So, months later, January 2020, the charges were upgraded.
Yes. January 7th, 2020. Fotis charged with murder, felony murder, kidnapping. Michelle Troconis and Kent Mawhinney both charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
Fotis made bail initially, right? $6 million.
He did, incredibly. Bankrolled by a new woman he was involved with. But then there was an issue with the bond collateral, and a new hearing was scheduled for January 30th, 2020. Everyone expected the judge to revoke bail, send him back to jail until trial.
But he never made it to the hearing.
No. That morning, January 30th, with media outside his house, he was found unresponsive in his truck in the garage. Carbon monoxide poisoning.
He took his own life.
Airlifted to a hospital, put on life support. His children were brought to say goodbye a few days later. Then he was pronounced deceased.
Did he leave a note?
He did. Claimed he was innocent, couldn't serve time for something he didn't do. And he also insisted Michelle and Kent were innocent too. A final attempt to shape the narrative.
But his death didn't stop the cases against Michelle and Kent.
Not at all. After delays due to the pandemic and legal maneuvering, Michelle Troconis went to trial.
And the verdict?
March 2024. Found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with evidence, hindering prosecution. Sentenced to 14.5 years in prison.
Is she appealing?
Yes, currently appealing. Her lawyers are arguing she got bad advice from her first attorney who told her to talk to the police multiple times. She's also facing a separate contempt of court charge.
Contempt? For what?
During her trial, she apparently displayed a sealed court document related to the case finances on her laptop screen, potentially visible to others, caused a whole issue, nearly a mistrial. So that's pending too.
Wow. And Kent Mawhinney, what's his status?
Still awaiting trial. He's out on bond. There's courthouse chatter about a possible plea deal, maybe avoiding trial altogether. But his lawyer still maintains his innocence publicly. So that's still unfolding.
It's just such a tragic story. What about Jennifer? How do her friends want her remembered?
They've been very clear. They don't want her defined by this. They remember her as a wonderful mother, completely devoted to her kids, as a great friend, a daughter, smart, funny, a talented writer. They want people to remember the vibrant life she lived, not just how it ended.
And it's important to remember she did try to leave safely, right? She had resources many victims don't.
Absolutely. She took all the steps she could, which underscores what Detective Kimball said. At its core, this is a domestic violence case.
Starting with control, escalating.
Exactly. Coercion, control, then abuse, and sometimes, tragically, murder. The statistics are horrifying. Over 1,000 women killed by partners every year in the U.S., and the risk is highest when they try to leave.
Wasn't there another similar case in Connecticut that influenced a law change?
Yes, chillingly. Another woman named Jennifer Magnano was killed by her estranged husband during their divorce in 2007. Because of both their cases, Connecticut passed Jennifer's Law in 2021.
What does that law do?
It expands the definition of domestic violence to include coercive control. Things like intimidation, isolation, financial abuse, patterns of behavior designed to control someone, even without physical violence. It offers more protection for victims trapped in those kinds of situations.
That's a crucial legacy. But for Jennifer's family, the biggest piece is still missing.
That's the unbearable part. No body, no grave, no final resting place. She was declared legally deceased in October 2023, but that doesn't bring closure.
And Detective Kimball believes Michelle Troconis knows more.
He's convinced she holds the key, has information that could lead them to Jennifer's remains. But giving up that information now would likely jeopardize her appeal. It's a terrible stalemate.
Which is maybe why this case still holds such fascination. It's not just the lack of a body. It feels familiar somehow.
Yeah, it touches those deep fears, right? The hidden dangers, what might be going on behind closed doors, even in perfect neighborhoods. It shows that sometimes the search for truth continues long after the verdict.
We've covered so much, the planning, the deception, how this crime came to light despite the missing piece. But that central question just hangs there. Where is Jennifer? What does that mean for justice, for her family's healing, when that question might never be answered?
And how does that absence shape how we think about closure, about what the legal system can and cannot do? What lessons are there about the dangers that can hide in plain sight, reminding us that sometimes the most disturbing truths are the ones still waiting to be found?